Well, we all know that diabetes awareness is extremely important, and here to talk with us about that now is Dr. Kenneth E. Thorpe. He's the chairman of the Partnership to Fight Chronic Disease at Emory. So, Dr. Thorpe, first of all, let's start off with the prevalence of this. How prevalent is diabetes, and how many Americans suffer with this disease?
Well, nationally, about 30 million Americans have type 2 diabetes. And in South Carolina, about 577 adults have type 2 diabetes as well. So unfortunately, it's a very prevalent disease.
It certainly sounds like it. So let's talk a little bit about individual groups. Does any one group or set of groups have an increased risk, or does it kind of affect everybody across the board?
Well, one of the biggest risk factors for type 2 diabetes is excess weight and obesity. So as our obesity rates have increased in the United States, type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure and bad cholesterol have also increased. So excess weight is one of the major risk factors associated with type 2 diabetes.
Now, I understand as well that African Americans tend to have a greater issue of this, up to past 70% greater likelihood. Is that right? And if so, what's the reason for that?
Well, that's right. If you look at Hispanics, they have a likelihood of 66% higher rates than non-Hispanic whites. African Americans, something on the order of 70% higher. Again, a lot of it is related to the distribution of weight in the population. So the obesity rates do vary by gender and race and ethnicity. And as a result, it places particularly minority populations at excess risk of having type 2 diabetes, and with it, elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. People with type 2 diabetes are 2 to 4 times more likely to have a stroke or a heart attack or some type of cardiovascular condition than people that don't have type 2 diabetes. So,
Dr. Thorpe, diabetes is something that, of course, it's a term that we all hear very frequently, and so I think a lot of times we just sort of hear it and it goes in one ear and out the other, and maybe we think it's something as simple as just a little bit of a sugar issue. So first of all, is it as simple as people seem to often believe? And if not, how dangerous are we talking?
Well, unmanaged, it can be very dangerous. So approximately 25% of people who have diabetes in South Carolina don't know that they have it. And so if that's not managed, you're at elevated risk of blindness, of having a foot amputation, a heart attack, or even stroke associated with unmanaged diabetes. So it's really important, that's why we're spending this month on diabetes awareness, to make sure that you go get those blood sugar levels checked, to see your physician on an annual basis to make sure that the blood sugar is under control, your cholesterol is under control, and your blood pressure is under control.
So let's bring it back to our viewers and bring it home. You mentioned South Carolina a couple of times. Just to really drive that home for our viewers, what are the stats in our state? How are we doing? And for that matter, what can we be doing better?
Well, 577,000 adults in South Carolina are type 2 diabetics. And the costs associated with this are enormous for the state. Just under $6 billion is spent on treating diabetes and is associated with lost productivity and reduced productivity at work. So it has a big economic impact as well as a big healthcare impact. So a couple things to be done. One is to be aware of the link between diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Second is to make sure that you know your blood sugar levels and that you have an action plan to put into place to get it under control. One of the ways you can do that is by watching your diet, looking at the calories in during the day, reducing fat, reducing sugar intake, and setting a goal of about 150 minutes a week of physical activity. Those are all proactive things that people can do to manage and reduce their blood sugar levels.
Definitely important information. And Dr. Thorpe, we are almost out of time, but can you tell us, how can our viewers learn more about this issue?
Well, if you go to our website, which is www.fightchronicdisease, that's one word, fightchronicdisease.org, we have a variety of very interesting information your viewers would like. We have information specifically on South Carolina with respect to the extent of the problem and some steps your viewers can take to keep them healthy.
Dr. Kenneth Thorpe, thank you very much for being with us today. Very valuable information indeed.
Thanks for having me on.
After the break, we have something very special for you as we move into holiday planning season. Stay right there.